So if you are watching this video, then there's a good chance that you have already received a CJO, a conditional job offer, to join an airline. So if that is the case, congratulations. If not, if you haven't yet gotten your CJO, you're probably one of those pre-planners who is looking ahead to see what you need to do to be successful in training. And so on the flip side of that, you also want to know what you should avoid to not be successful and what other people have done in the past that have caused them to be unsuccessful in flight attendant training. So I'm Abby Unger, the owner of Flight Attendant Career Connection, and I help aspiring flight attendants land their dream job faster and with less frustration. I have worked for several major airlines and a regional airline in the US. And so I've been through training several times. I also had the opportunity to work as an in-flight instructor. I've also worked as a customer service instructor for an airline as well. So I love training. I love being an instructor. I enjoyed every flight attendant training that I went through. I made friends. I made great friends. I learned so much. I just really love training, but I know that training can be intimidating for a lot of people. And so I put together a list. I thought that it would be, kind of hook you if I said 10 reasons people are fail flight attendant training. And I am going to go over 10 reasons that people are unsuccessful in training. But I hope that I'm really making this list and this video to encourage you, less of a warning and more of an encouragement, just to see why people are unsuccessful in training. So some of these things for you will not even be issues. Some of these things will be things that you'll say, okay, I want to avoid that. Okay, I'm going to be looking for that. I'm going to be paying attention about that. So hopefully you find this list helpful and not just salacious. That's my goal. So number first reason that people are unsuccessful in flight attendant training is because they fail the drug test. I feel like right now a lot more airlines are doing the drug test out in front of training, but there is always the chance that your drug test could be conducted during training, or the results could come back while you're in training. So one reason that people are not successful during training, or they have their job offer, their CJO rescinded, is because they do not pass their drug test. So reasons that people don't pass their drug test is because they're using one of the drugs that are being tested for that are prohibited by the Department of Transportation. This does include marijuana, either recreational use or medicinal use, even with a doctor's prescription. Right now, federally, marijuana is not allowed, and since this is a federal test and the FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration, we fall under those guidelines. So no marijuana use. If you are on a stimulant for ADHD, or you're on a medication for anxiety or something like that, those medications are okay. They will not disqualify you on the drug test. All right. Number 2, door drills. Door drills. What are door drills? Door drills are talking about when you hear someone was unsuccessful in their door drills, or they failed their door drills. So every aircraft has different ways to evacuate, right? So whenever we fly and they say there are 4 exits located, or there are 6 exits located on this aircraft, each one of those exits is either a door or a window. They all operate differently. They all they are all opened in a different way, in a different order. The slide is attached differently. Some don't have slides. There's all these different nuances to all the different doors. So if you hear someone has failed their door drill, what that means is they were not able to successfully open the door in a simulated evacuation test. So for every aircraft that your airline has, you will become certified on opening that door during an evacuation. And so if you go to an airline that has a lot of different aircraft, then there will be a lot of different door drills and a lot of different doors and windows that you will become certified in opening. And then if you go to an airline that doesn't have as many, then you would maybe only have 1 or 2 doors that you would need to become certified in. The good news is training, there's plenty of time to learn. There are plenty of mock-up doors to practice on. So that's what door drills are, if you hear about someone maybe failed during door drill. Another reason, all along the same lines, reason number three is they weren't successful in the testing. This might be the thing that you are most worried about because you do need to have a certain percentage to pass flight attendant training on your testing. It varies from airline to airline, but it's anywhere from 80 to 90%. Sometimes it's 80%, and then you can take a retake, and on the retake, you have to have a 90%. There's little nuances between each airline, which will become clearer to you as you get closer to training. They'll make sure that you know what is expected. They're not just going to give you the test and say like, hope you make, hope you hit our goal. They're going to tell you what is expected. Some of the tests are going to be open book or open manual, open notes. Some of the tests are not. They're going to be things that you just have to memorize. So as far as this is concerned, if you feel like you are not a great test taker, then doing some research on how to become a better test taker. If you feel like you haven't taken tests in a long time, so you maybe aren't going to be a good test taker, again, doing some research, finding out what kind of learner you are. And there's lots of videos on YouTube. Maybe I'll make one. I haven't made one yet, though, about how to test, how to take tests. How to take tests well. So there are tips, there's tricks, there's things you can do to give yourself better odds when you're taking a test. Remember that your instructors are there for you to succeed. Once you get the job offer, once you go to training, they're no longer weeding you out. They are there to teach you what you need to know. And that's the test is just to monitor that. It's not to trick you or trip you up. Okay, that was number 3. Number 4 is relationships, situationships, various reasons of relationships that could go sideways. So I'm not saying that they just someone starts to like their classmate or even dates their classmate. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that they just get into a relationship and that's not allowed and you're out. I'm talking about things involving relationships. So either relationships that would be friendships that go sour and cause issues within the training class. That could be something. So that basically leads to unprofessional behavior. Also, physical relationships between people can also either go sideways or go south, and can cause issues as well. Sometimes they can also end up physical relationships can end up in inappropriate places sometimes, and that I'm trying to be really careful because YouTube and things like that, but I think you can read between the lines about what I mean. And so that actually did happen between a couple that was in one of my trainings when I was a student, and they ended up being dismissed. So that relationships. Next, which this one goes kind of along with the relationships, sort of, because it usually leads to the unprofessionalism behaviors. Drinking alcohol. So drinking alcohol is allowed within certain parameters, and you may hear people say like, just don't go out, don't party, don't drink, don't da da. I'm not gonna say that, first of all, because that's not what I'm gonna do. It's not what I did. But you do have to know yourself. Like, if it is best for you to abstain, to go sober the whole time, then do it. But don't be afraid that if you go someplace where they're serving alcohol at any point, that now you're going to be kicked out of training or you're going to be dismissed from training. So they will give you guidelines as to when you can consume alcohol. As a flight attendant, you will have guidelines as to when you can consume alcohol, and they usually mirror that. So the FAA has an 8-hour rule. We say bottle to throttle, so between drinking and working, but most airlines have a company policy that supersedes that. So if the FAA minimum is 8 hours, your company policy may be 10 hours or 12 hours. So it is important that you are still abiding by that. So if you are out, or you're even down in the hotel bar, or you're down in the hotel restaurant, and and maybe you and some classmates are having some adult beverages, when it comes to that cutoff time, have the beverages cleared from the table. Don't have any kind of appearance of evil. If you're having a cocktail and now it's 7 o'clock and you're done, but your beer glass is still on the table and you have 7 a.m. class, make sure that the server takes it away. Clean the table off. Make sure that it never even looks like cash out. Make sure it looks like you never bought alcohol after the time. That's about sort of like appearances. But then also, if your airline allows you to have alcohol in your room, okay, some airlines don't. Sticking to these rules, remembering that when you're at the hotel and the airline is paying for it, there are little eyes everywhere. Do not get sloppy and stumble back to your room, things like that. Okay, so yes, you can drink, but make sure that this is a reason that people are sometimes dismissed from training. All right, I should have numbered these on my list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, number 6. Sixth reason I see people not successful in training, relationships at home. This one is tricky. It could be that they have an unsupportive partner that ends up just sort of sabotaging the experience. It could be that they are just so homesick that they need to go home. It could be that their child needs them. I have a client who needed to leave training because her adult son that was in college, was having a mental health crisis, and she had to go to him, and she did the right thing, and he is great now. So she did the right thing, but that was a reason she wasn't successful in training. I've also I had a classmate at one of my trainings who found out that she was expecting right at the beginning of training, and she could have stayed. This isn't a reason she was dismissed from training, but she did decide to go home when she found out that she was expecting. So that's another reason that people are not successful in training, is because they choose to go home, or they have things going on at home that are calling them away. Okay. Another reason is sickness. So people get sick. Right now with the pandemic, that's pretty straightforward, right? But then there's other things. When I was in one of my trainings, we had a student who joined us who had been in a class, several classes ahead of us, who had gotten a really, really bad kidney infection and ended up in the hospital. And then she was put back in our class so that she could kind of pick up where she was. Also in that same class, we had someone join us who had gotten some kind of body rash and had come back to join us after it cleared up. So I don't know if it's like hives from stress or what, but every airline's going to handle this differently. Some airlines will allow you to kind of start back where you had left off with another class. Some airlines will have you just start over completely. And, some airlines may ask you to reapply again. Depending on what the situation is, how long you're out, things like that. But sickness is a reason that people are unsuccessful in training. So make sure that you are getting your rest, washing your hands, taking your vitamins, eating well, and doing your best to stay healthy. Okay. Another reason number 7, people are not successful during training. Their background check doesn't come back satisfactory. So again, a lot of background checks are run. A lot of airlines will run the background check before training to kind of help alleviate the need to dismiss someone from training, but it still kind of falls under that umbrella of your CJO was rescinded. Okay. So it could be anything from something that you didn't disclose. Remember, anything that it's expunged from your record, and expungement, the way I understand it, not a lawyer, is on a state level, and this is a federal background check, FBI background check, so they can see everything. So answering the questions on your background check, airlines ask different questions. Some want to know everything, every speeding ticket you've ever had in your life. Some only want to know what you've done in the last 10 years. There's just different. Some only want to know about your felonies. There's different guidelines as to what is or is not allowed. If you have been arrested or charged with a DUI, driving under the influence or driving while intoxicated, domestic violence, and several other crimes in the last 10 years, you may not have permission to enter the country of Canada. That's a Canadian rule. They have a rule that you don't get to go there within 10 years of doing something like that. So that's another thing. If you had something, maybe it was expunged, but it pops up and you no longer have access to Canada, that's going to show up on your background check. And that's kind of one of the things that they mean in the application when the required qualifications are that you can enter and exit any country that airline serves freely. That a lot of that means, especially for people with American passports, that's going to really mean Canada. That you have permission to go to Canada. Okay, so that's another reason. Reason number 9, late. You're late. You're late for class. You're late. You're late after your break. I don't know if any of y'all have seen, I think it's still on YouTube, but like this was like 2004, 2005, like right before I was going through training. Frontier Airlines had a reality show, it was on like A&E or something, and it was flight attendant training, a reality show. If it's still on YouTube, you should go watch it because it's awesome. It's very like they made it for TV, but it's still pretty interesting. And actually, one of the people that was in that training class, not like the main character, but a person in the training class was actually in my continental training class. But anyways, but you'll see in one of the first episodes, there's this very dramatic release of one of the trainees because she was late coming back from a break because like something like she went to the wrong door and it was locked, or I don't remember. It was just and of course it's a TV show, so it makes it really sad. But I guess I would be really sad if I wasn't on TV and that happened to me. So being late for the bus, being late back from breaks. If you're on time, if you're early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you get left, right? Because the airplane leaves you. So that's another reason. And then reason number 10 that people are sometimes dismissed from training is non-compliance. This is usually around uniforms. So it would be anything from a tattoo that should not ever be visible that now is visible because you're practicing closing the overhead bins and your wrist tattoo shows. Or you're squatting down to inflate the manual inflation handle on the door on the slide, and now your lower back tattoo is showing. That these things, non-compliance, your hair's not in compliance. It's not pulled back on the days that ask you to pull it back. Your jewelry's not in compliance. Your earrings are too big. Your necklace is wrong. You're not dressed appropriately, meaning you're not wearing the right kind of shoes on the days you're supposed to wear it. Now, all airlines have kind of a different training uniform or training guidelines, everywhere from business casual to here's this uniform I'm going to give you, to yellow and white polo shirts only. You'll get that information. So I'm not here to tell you that information, but non-compliance, not showing up to work dressed correctly with the things that you need over and over again. Also, non-compliance can sometimes go to attitude. Not being helpful, having a bad attitude, sleeping during class, these not sitting appropriately, not representing the airline appropriately at the hotel or out and about or on the bus. All of these kind of fall under non-compliance. And that's the 10th reason why people are not successful during training. I think that I kind of covered it all. If I didn't and you know of something that I should have added or any other kind of advice or anything that goes along with this, you can drop it in the comments. But I hope that this video helps you feel a little bit better because now that you see the 10 reasons that people are released from training, you realize that none of them are super scary and most of them can be avoided and none of them are surprising either. So good luck. Congratulations on your job offer. And I can't wait to see you in your wings. Bye.